Hi, it's Brittany. Um, so when I initially set out to just like to narrow down my topic for the paper, I kind of had a hard time figuring out the exact direction that I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to address disabilities in some fashion because I'm a special education major. Then as I researched the topic, it kind of guided my paper in the direction that I ended up going. Um, my research question is what is the impact of the media's portrayal of individuals with disabilities? So, um, the research that I found kind of led me to that question. The influence that I was able to kind of narrow it into some subcategories. The first one is the influence of the depiction of the disability. There were several factors that influenced society, and those main factors were the fact that the media promotes stereotypes for individuals with disabilities. They're not fairly represented in the media to society, and there's a lot of inaccurate depictions and information that's put out there for people who um, may not even have the chance to work with individuals with disabilities. So, and there's a big underrepresentation as well. But these factors they contribute to other things. They can cause discrimination against individuals. They can cause fear of them. There's definitely a misunderstanding of the population, overgeneralization, stereotyping. There's a loss of autonomy for these people. They're just kind of all grouped together. So it's easy to see where that could cause a problem. The individuals that are represented in film was another way that or another type that I researched and found some good information on. Um, it's important for them to be accurately represented in film because of the large audience that film reaches. They're oftentimes represented in a negative fashion. Characteristics with of this specific disabilities are over exaggerated. Sometimes they're portrayed, much worse than what they would be if you actually knew the person in real life. And then they're not represented as contributing members of society. And that's a big problem because these individuals can be taught skills and work right alongside you or I, in society. The way that they're represented in literature. Literature is a great way for people to learn about these people. Um, they can help them become more accepted and understood by society. There has been an increase in representation, but it's still proportionally low when you compare like books that have characters with and without disabilities, I guess. The disabilities that are represented in the literature, though, aren't typically the most commonly seen, and they're typically vaguely represented, or the character isn't necessarily a main character. They're more of an underlying, sidekick rather than like the superhero of the story. Um, they a lot of times portray them as unrelatable people, and once again, they're inaccurately depicted most of the time. Another way that or another um, representation that I found was the specific groups of people that the media represents. So I had representation in film, representation in literature, and now going on to how the media represents individual groups of people. Um, Autism spectrum disorder, they are so stereotyped, and it's such a large spectrum. When you look at autism, there's high functioning, low functioning, but they are all individual and all different, um, but most often portrayed with the worst type of stereotype that you can imagine by the media. Leads to negative views of these people. It leads them to be labeled and overgeneralized. Um, Mothers with disabilities. It's promoted. There's an underlying agenda, I guess, that with regard to mothers with disabilities, they kind of have an agenda on what they want people to believe or feel about these people, rather than accepting them and understanding that they can still be mothers too. They just have a different way of doing it. The articles they portray mothers, when they do so, they focus on their disability rather than the inspiration or their courage. So that can lead to a negative um, view of this type of person with a disability. Um, a really great way to promote positive portrayals of individuals with disabilities is through sports. Unfortunately, that's another area where there's just a gross underrepresentation by the media, and even in the sports themselves. But that would be a really great positive way that we could view individuals with disabilities. Um, the media would be a great way to alter the perception of this population. Um, you can alter the society's opinion of the disability in general. We need to focus more on person-centered approaches so that you're seeing the person first rather than the disability first. We can reach such a large audience through the various forms of media. The individuals, they need to be portrayed in a positive light, and that, like I said earlier, as a contributing member of society, or a valued member of our community. Um, the portrayals need to be realistic and relatable in order to give an insight to someone who maybe hasn't worked with anybody with a disability, or they don't know anybody who has a disability. But all in all, the impact of the portrayal of individuals with disabilities is undeniable. I mean, the groups, they're represented in movies and literature. Um, Once again, some according to their specific disability or specific type of group. But the individuals with disabilities, they've been fighting for so long to be heard and fairly represented, since before the civil rights movement, even. The media can be such a valuable tool for this population to help people understand what these individuals can add to our communities as they are integrated into our everyday life. Thank you.